Hi guys, KC Talks EV here, and today we're going to be talking about bulbs. More specifically, we're going to be talking about the new PIAA headlights that I fitted, as well as just quickly going over the LED interior light bulbs, which as you can see has brightened up and just made it a bit more easier to see me in the dark. So without further ado, let's get started. Now I'm just going to start this quickly off with a disclaimer. A lot of the information regarding bulbs is very old. A lot of this information also is very ambiguous. Regarding where you go to find this information is what they'll actually tell you. Really, I mean, I had a complete faff trying to find real information regarding things like fitting HIDs or LED bulbs and things like that. But effectively, hopefully, I'm going to give a relatively correct, I guess, overview into things like colour temperature and legality surrounding bulbs, etc. Basically, the problem with my old headlights was that really, in terms of colour temperature, they're too yellow. They don't match the LED daytime running lights, which are much more cooler colour, and I was hoping that I'd be able to make it slightly better. I personally think this was an oversight from MG because it's much easier for a manufacturer to fit things like HIDs or LED bulbs because they are able to change the cluster and make sure it's certified. For example, if I wanted to upgrade to high intensity discharge or HIDs or LEDs, I would require things like a cleaning system and automatic self-leveling in the UK to be road legal, and that is a lot of effort. Not to mention, at the moment, I don't think anyone does a full aftermarket headlight cluster for the ZS EV, which you would really require to make it road legal. So if that's the case then, and I want to stick with halogen, what are my actual options? Just going to have a quick interlude into colour temperature and what that actually means when choosing bulbs. Now, don't get me wrong, I'm not an expert in photography, as you can tell probably from a lot of the videos that I do. So forgive me if I do gloss over a lot of information which would be important for definitely to give a much more complete talk about colour temperature. But essentially, colour temperature is a method of measuring the colour of light, the actual colour of it, from a lamp. And this is measured on the Kelvin scale, so that was developed by Lord Kelvin. And effectively, the reason why is because historically, it would actually correlate to the temperature of an incandescent bulb filament. Essentially, the standard halogen bulbs are somewhere around 3200 Kelvin. And this is definitely on a warmer white end of the spectrum, or a yellowish colour basically. And to put into context, a standard sort of incandescent bulb that you would find in the house, or may find in the house still, I think with a lot of the legislation going around, they all have swapped towards LEDs, so they might be a cooler colour, but they would be somewhere around 2700 Kelvin. And hopefully I've put on the overlay of the colour temperature chart here just to give a more visual representation of it. So again, with the bulbs at around 3200 Kelvin, that is a standard characteristic colour of a halogen bulb. And this presents a problem basically, because you would think that, oh, you wouldn't be able to get sort of a whiter colour. But no, a lot of manufacturers do offer whiter colour bulbs. So earing towards more 3700, 3900 Kelvin, even 4200 Kelvin. This means that the light becomes more whiter, and you can even get towards a bluish white. The problem occurs actually when you do want a higher colour temperature compared to halogen bulbs. Now, effectively, why I've been reading up on it, the reason why is because the law, in the UK at least, suggests that you can only have white or yellow light. As well, there's some rumours regarding the use of a bluish, well, going towards a bluish white, could match the light from emergency service vehicles, but clearly that's not the case given that you can buy factory fitted HIDs or LEDs. But essentially what I found is that any bulb above 4300 Kelvin is not considered road legal. For example, the Philips Diamond Vision would instantly sort out most of my problems, but unfortunately, they're, first of all, not road legal. A lot of the shops that you do buy these bulbs from will explicitly say they're not road legal. As well, just another important factor to note, a whiter halogen lamp normally results in a less longevity, as well as a less actual bright light. Now, brightness is completely separate, and in fact, actually, this is where the confusion lies normally. and this is measured in lumens, but effectively, because of those two reasons, you do have to factor that in when buying a whiter bulb. So after that quick interlude, we're going to start talking now about the PIAA bulbs that I've actually fitted. In terms of installation, just on a general note, just follow the instructions listed in your car's manual. With two specific things about the ZS EV in particular, the bulb cover that actually covers the halogen bulb in the cluster is ridiculously hard to get off a cluster, and to be honest with you, I can't believe how difficult it was. It required a hell of a lot of force in order to remove it. In the end, when I was placing it back on, there were two things that I did. First of all, I did add a tiny bit of silicone grease to the gasket. I don't know really if that's going to make any difference, but I just fitted it just as a precaution. Second thing as well is that the clips that are holding the bulb to the connector are extremely fragile to get off without breaking them. As well as, I'm just going to mention, don't touch the bulb glass with your bare hands. I bought some work gloves just to make sure if I did touch the bulb, at least I won't get any oils on them, and they were brand new work gloves. And just generally, just don't touch the glass. So originally I picked these over the Philips White Vision, just due to the confusion over colour temperature. By the way, I've got some notes here. Effectively, the problem was originally there was a lot of ambiguity surrounding whether it was 4,200 or 3,700, and that would make quite a big difference to the whiteness of the light. And I really wanted the highest colour temperature I could on the box that I could achieve. I reckon what's happened is that Philips mentioned it was up to 4,200 Kelvin, and it turns out after a lot of negative reviews later, it's nowhere near that, and it's somewhere around 3,700, and that's why they updated their packaging. But that does mean, effectively, I think it's the same bulb, it's just what's on the packaging. 3,900 Kelvin was listed on the PIAAs, which is definitely on the cooler ends of what you can buy from people like Osram and Philips. Osram don't actually mention explicitly the colour temperature. So, for example, the Night Breaker laser, it doesn't mention, whether it's 3,700, etc. So that's why I kind of steered away from that. Also, there are also plenty of videos from other people who have fitted Osram Night Breaker lasers, and I think they're quite happy with them. So if you're not, so as a great alternative, I think personally, both the PIAAs or the Osram Night Breakers are fine. So first and foremost, is the light actually a bit more whiter and a bit more comparable to the daytime running lights? Depending on what you feel about it, I think the answer really is yes, it is ever so slightly more white. And that should have been the case by going from, a 3,200 Kelvin to a 3,900 Kelvin. But I think the footage really doesn't do it justice. But to be perfectly honest, it really isn't such a night and day difference that I would go out and buy this bulb explicitly to make the front look cleaner. I think the problem is, as I said, you can't break physics. You will be able to get a whiter light, it's never going to match your LED daytime running lights. So I guess that's one learning point there. However, the most interesting aspect of this is you definitely get a much better bulb in general in terms of visibility. I'll just show some footage here. On the left side, it's the OEMs, and the right side, it's the PIAAs. But genuinely, there is ironically, a night and day difference compared to the OEM halogen bulbs. I could easily see an additional maybe 5-10 meters in front of me, which, could genuinely make a difference. Not to mention that the beam pattern is fairly similar, so the actual sort of the angle of light is about the same, but in front of me I can see a lot more. And in fact, actually, as you can see as well, it is actually whiter as well. So overall, I think I'm fairly impressed, and I'm definitely going to keep the bulbs in. I think, as I said before, if you are buying it solely to get it ever so slightly whiter, then fine. But if you wanted to get it dead white, you are going to, legally, by the way, you are going to have to wait for a full cluster kit, and you are going to have to follow the rules. Maybe the rules might change in between you watching this video and now, but effectively, and as far as I'm aware, can't fit LED or HID kits without adding things like a cleaning kit or a self-leveling kit. So overall, I'm fairly impressed with the bulb itself. As you can see, I'm also filming. I do quite a lot of filming during the night, and I've upgraded my interior lights to LED. The LED light upgrade is fairly straightforward for the ZS EV as well. Unfortunately, I did have a bit of a moment, and when I was reading the instructions, I thought for some reason that you had to pry from the front. As a result of doing that, as you can see from the video, I might have accidentally gouged a little bit of plastic before I realised my mistake, and obviously, metal versus plastic, metal always wins. And the manual is right, I'd probably use just a very small flathead screwdriver, remove the bulb, and as you can see, it really does brighten it up. I've also left a link in the description for that. It is an affiliate link, by the way. Another thing as well is I haven't received any CAN bus errors, and it is a bit confusing as to whether these bulbs genuinely have CAN bus error-free bits and bobs on it. I am a little bit doubtful on that, but I haven't actually suffered any sort of bulb blowing out errors on my instrument cluster. So that is it. I know it's a quick video, and I know I may have glossed over a few bits and pieces, but actually, you know, I think it works quite well. I'm going to be keeping these bulbs and hopefully monitoring them for things like longevity, which I did mention. A whiter light does have slightly less longevity, but then on the other hand, being able to see and the visibility is probably more important than a few less hours. So anyway, if you did like the video, like it, dislike it if you don't. Be sure to also share the video if it is useful to anyone else, and talk to you later.